as a simple way to get around the 100 years of regulation that came about that gave us IPOs. It's very, very hard to get investment. And the reason for that is because little people don't have the ability to hold company creators accountable. So for me, most of the people that are doing an ICO, just their projects are not going to get funded by VCs, and they're going to the little people that don't understand and aren't able to vet their projects. But they see it as a quick get-rich-quick mechanism to buy into something and immediately resell it. Doing an ICO gives all the advantages to the person giving an ICO. They can raise even more money than traditional VCs with absolutely zero liabilities to their investors. So when VCs give a company money, they demand equity, they also provide oversight, and they have the resources to keep those companies accountable in cases where they just decide to run away with all the money. Probably the only really successful ICO so far has been Ethereum, and its only use case is to replicate the Ethereum model by other companies on top of itself. I just don't see that as a sustainable model, and they're all centralized, and sooner or later the regulators are going to show up and people are going to get arrested. I haven't paid close enough attention to the altcoin markets, but Bitcoin is something I closely pay attention to, and it has been crashing. I believe it's now down to $6,000 from $20,000, and that's because it just got overhyped. The value of one Bitcoin went from $1,000 to $20,000 in 1 year. I personally only expected it to go up as high as $3,000 throughout 2017. When it got to $7,500, I thought that should have been the top. I thought it was getting way out of hand. Everything above $7,500 I saw as unsustainable. Now that we've fallen back down below that, it's just there just was too much hype. There's too much hype on Wall Street getting in. Bitcoin use cases are still pretty limited. They're still pretty niche. And eventually we'll find a bottom and we will get to new all-time highs soon. But I don't have the same view for altcoins. I think once the altcoin buzz and hype is over, I think that bubble will not come back. And that one is going to stay perpetually low. The speed of transactions and the cost of transactions are basically things that altcoin investors and altcoin creators say to demonize Bitcoin to sell their coin. In reality, Bitcoin was built for censorship-resistant payments, and when it's time for you to make a censorship-resistant payment, the speed and the cost of that payment are pretty much irrelevant. We also have hundreds of some of the smartest data scientists in the world working on scaling issues, and they have come up with the best solutions for that scaling. It just takes a little while to test, takes a little while to get it off the ground to make sure that it's actually sustainable. It builds on itself. Media is responsible because they don't really understand. A lot of it is who is actually going on media, like who are the advisors. If you have the wrong person advising a government, the government is going to go in the wrong direction. So it's all about the hype, and when people get rich, when they see their friends get rich, they want to get rich. And that's how these bubbles grow until there is a realization that at the end of the day, your ICO is a .com without a developer, yet the stock is trading at $100 a share. That's how I expect it to end, exactly like the .com, with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin blockchain being that fundamental underlying protocol layer, the way the internet is the underlying layer. And those that utilize that layer correctly and build on top of that layer correctly will have successful companies. Many debates here at the conference up to this point, because I do see it differently than most of the speakers, most of the attendees. But I have a big enough YouTube fan base, a big enough social media fan base, and a lot of people came out to this event because they knew I was in Singapore, they knew I was speaking. So I did have some interesting conversations from those that have been watching all of my videos for the last few years. I mean, I think the conference is very well put together. There is a huge attendance, but all of the companies that are in the showroom floor, I've never heard of any of these companies, and I would be very surprised if any of these companies and ICOs are still with us in 12 months.